This is my PRS Silver Sky, USA model or core model, whatever they call it. I've had this for 2 years now, pretty much 2 years. Back then I did a video entitled something like 6 things PRS don't tell you about the Silver Sky. Now while that may seem like a bit of a clickbaity title, and yes, it kind of was, it also rang true with the video. That video was basically my first impressions of the guitar, things that surprised me, things that I'd not necessarily read about the Silver Sky before owning it and playing it for the first couple of weeks. This video, however, is not that. This is going to be my honest thoughts on the Silver Sky after 2 years of ownership, what it's like to live with and rely on a PRS USA Silver Sky. I'm going to share if those first impressions still ring true, what's held up, maybe what hasn't held up, and of course, we'll get some tones along the way. Looking back on those first impressions, my main takeaways were I really liked the neck, the pickups, and the build quality. Now the neck feel, to me at least, the Silver Sky has a surprisingly chunky C profile that has pretty substantial shoulders actually, and that surprised me initially. Maybe that's not going to be for everyone, but for me it immediately felt right, and it's still probably my favourite neck that I own. Okay, secondly, I mentioned in that first video the pickups, and I still really love these pickups, especially the middle one. The middle one is just fabulous in the Silver Sky. That's enhanced even more because in almost every other Strat or S-type, the middle pickup plays more of a supporting role to the other pickups, you know, in those in between 2 and 4 positions. And you almost never use the middle pickup on its own, but in the Silver Sky, it's kind of the most special sound in the guitar. Okay, and then the build quality. I was initially struck by how clean the build quality is. It's just flawless. To me, my impressions of PRS a couple of years ago, but they were an upper echelon of guitar builders. Again, then I hadn't played too many, now I've played a few more, and it just rings true still. The build quality is just superb, super clean, just makes sense. For example, recently I had to take the jack socket off of the guitar. I'll get onto that shortly. And the jack socket is actually routed into the wood a little bit, just to sink that down and make it slightly more flush with the body. And that is something that Fender would never do. Just that attention to detail carries across on the rest of the guitar. And I'm still astounded by how many unique pieces of hardware are on the Silver Sky. 2 years later, those first impressions haven't really faded, and I've come to appreciate some of the more subtle things about the Silver Sky. And I think that comes with getting to know a guitar a bit more intimately, as you start to understand its strengths, its weaknesses, and for me, how it fits into the rest of my collection. So today, after 2 years and hours of playtime on the Silver Sky, how is that build quality holding up and how has the reliability been? Firstly, I will caveat this by saying I don't particularly look after my guitars that well. I don't treat them like delicate objects. I will place them precariously on the edge of my desk. I'll knock them as I put them back down on the guitar rack. Basically, as soon as any bit of gear for me, a guitar, a camera, a light, my amp setup, as soon as any of that becomes an obstacle to getting going, being creative, recording, then I instantly start to not gel with that thing. And I'm never that bothered about, am I Scottish? And I'm never that bothered about scratches, dings, wear on guitars. So, all that being said, the Silver Sky has held up really, really well. Yes, there are dings, especially on the back of the guitar, probably from when I'm putting it back on the rack or knocking it on the desk, but the finish has held up really, really well. No evidence of any sort of nitro checking yet, which I thought we might see, but I can't see any yet. But yeah, it still looks great. Not brand new, but the next best thing, I would say. Moving on to sort of the neck and the fretwork and the tuning stability, again, has all been flawless. Maybe what you'd expect from a PRS, I guess, but I really get on with this setup. As I said, it's definitely my favourite neck that I own. And I'm really getting on still with that 7¼ inch radius. I don't know why people were so upset about it. It feels great to me. I have no dead spots on the neck, and I'm not even sure I've ever even adjusted the truss rod. When this guitar shipped to me, it came with 10s, I believe. Now I have the Ernie Ball John Mayer 10.5 set on here. I didn't need to do any adjustments. It just kind of settled it in nicely. All that carries over to the hardware as well. The bridge, the tuners, everything is great. Really good, and that's unique for me because after a couple of years of ownership with any guitar, I start to think about the stuff that I can mod or change, no matter what the price tag is. And I haven't had that with this guitar. Everything fits together so purposefully with the Silver Sky. Okay, not everything has been completely flawless though, I will be honest. A few crackly pots. I think my my volume knob is a little bit crackly, and also, as I mentioned earlier, I did have to take this jack socket off. I didn't need to replace it. Actually, it's still quite loose. It's just loose. It seems like it's rotating inside of there, and I don't quite have the dexterity to tighten it up all the way. These are super minor things, and actually, you could argue that's just general maintenance. But they're things that I thought I'd mention. Nothing deal breakery though. The neck pickup is such an important part of any S-type guitar, and maybe is the place where you're going to spend the most time with any S-type guitar, and the Silver Sky neck pickup delivers. It's warm, it's round, it's bell-like, all those classic words that we use to describe a Strat tone. The Silver Sky has it in spades. It's a really great sounding pickup. Let's move on to position. I never know, is that 2 or 4? Neck and middle. I've not warmed up yet, come on. That classic middle position, neck and middle tone that not only Mayer is famous for, but kind of gets funky. I've played better Strats for funk than a Silver Sky, more snappy, immediate Strats or S-types. That sort of sweetness and mellowness comes through that I guess is kind of indicative of the Silver Sky. That's what it's good at. Okay, next position is the middle. This is where it's at for me. but it doesn't shine so much with this clean tone. I'll show you with some gain in a second, but it's the perfect middle ground between the neck and bridge pickups. And I think that's why it's so useful in this guitar, is that when you don't want that roundness of the neck pickup, but maybe you don't want that sharpness of the bridge, the middle pickup is the way to go. John Mayer is always using that sound with a bit of gain, so let's throw on a drive pedal and a chorus pedal. That's how I love the middle pickup for lead playing with a bit of drive. I think that's so good. Middle and bridge. I've always been a bit of a sucker for that tone on S-type guitars. It's such a musical sound. Again, it's sort of, you're not getting the harshness of the bridge pickup on its own. Sounds great for some cowboy chords. Finally, the bridge pickup. Kind of has that, you know, typical kind of harshness of a Strat pickup, but it is turned down ever so slightly. I remember that being part of the launch material, launch marketing of the Silver Skies, that they had ever so slightly tamed the harshness of the bridge pickup, and I think it's worked really nicely. Works better with a bit of gain though. Across the board, I think this is a guitar that really shines in that edge of breakup territory. You know, light to medium gain. Yes, it's great, the clean stuff, and we know John Mayer for that, but I think there's something about the sweetness of this guitar that really shines just with a hair of gain. Stuff where you want the chime and a little bit of compression and the feel of a good Strat without it getting too ice picky. I will say at this point though that it isn't a do-everything Strat. It's not an S-type that can cover every Strat tone known to man. I touched on it a bit a second ago, but I think as my ears have matured, I've started to distinguish the differences between different eras of S-types, of Strats, specifically 50s and 60s Strats. It's almost a crime to call them both Stratocasters because a 50s Strat sounds completely different to a 60s Strat. And this is definitely leaning towards that 60s, even more specific than that, the early 60s sound. I think John Mayer's thing is 62, 63, 64, somewhere in that realm. And I think this is where this guitar lives. That's become more obvious to me because I own a 50s reissue Fender Strat. And the two guitars almost couldn't be more further apart. So as I said, this is my Fender mid-50s AVRI Strat. Let's just run through some tones. the Silver Sky has a much more smoother and refined sound than that 50s style S-type tone. You know, my Fender, for example, is just, it's a bit ruder. It's a bit more all over the place. And sometimes I want that, but you can see how different the two guitars sound. And that's not only the difference between the PRS Silver Sky and the Fender Strat, that is a difference between different eras of Strat tones. And like I said, if you want that bit more ruder, all over the place tone, the Silver Sky is just too refined for that. It's almost too polite in a way, meaning that I still pick the Silver Sky for most things when I want that tone, for when I want that Strat tone. Still pick the SS for most things, but occasionally, just sometimes, I want to be a bit ruder, have a bit more bark, a bit more mid-range bite, I think, and then I'll pick up my Fender Strat. So the answer to you is just have both. Just have more guitars. One thing that I didn't particularly expect about this guitar is how often I think twice about playing it because of the John Mayer thing. Now, this isn't a Silver Sky issue, this is a thing with every signature guitar on the planet, is that it comes with a little bit of baggage, I guess. I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm not trying to be that Mayer guy, even though he is a very important guitar player for my personal guitar journey. I'm not trying to emulate him with this guitar. And I think as soon as you pick this up, especially online or on a gig, you're immediately going to be put into that camp a little bit. For some of you, that's going to be a bonus and that's going to be what you want. For others, it's going to be a bit of baggage, like I said. I've dealt with it in a way that I just focus on expressing myself when I play the guitar. Focus on playing almost anti-John Mayer stuff. And that's really worked well for me. And I've had numerous comments on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, that people are really surprised. They never would have guessed that I was playing a Silver Sky if they'd heard that tone on its own. And I think that's a testament to the guitar and PRS and John's collaboration. For me, that is something that I've had to overcome. And it's not going to be a deal breaker for everyone out there, but it's definitely something I've considered with my journey the last 2 years with the Silver Sky. Okay, so would I buy a Silver Sky in 2025? Would I buy another one? Yeah, I absolutely would. If I was in the market for something like this, I'd even have a second one, to be honest, with a maple neck maybe. It's a guitar that really, really works for me. But what you get with the tone, the feel, the build quality, all for me, it's custom shop quality without the 3, 4, 5 grand price tag. I don't even know what a custom shop costs these days, but I paid £1,900 for this. Yes, it was on a deal, but you can get one for around that 2 grand mark. And I'm not sure there's much else, especially from the big three, that comes close to this. If you love that 60s Strat sound, then this might be one of the best options out there at the moment, especially if you want something vintage sounding, but that's still dependable, it's classy, and maybe not the obvious choice. It's still a killer option, and I can't recommend them enough.